Theodore Holden again, Southeast Texas, and I'm still wanting to talk about recent prehistory and the Shamash alignment and the question of a possible Venus-Mars alignment. And the the Ganymede hypothesis starts with two pieces of evidence which Troy McLaughlin and I viewed as critical early on. Okay, the two most major pieces of evidence that we have for understanding the recent antediluvian period are going to be eye sizes and planetary axis tilts of our system. Okay, and the most major of those is axis tilts. Now, when I look at the Thunderbolts group and its picture of the Saturn hypothesis, right? I mean, of an ancient Saturnian system. It does not. It appears to me to be constructed entirely from a mythical historical record. They do not appear to have ever taken axis tilts into account, right? And as far as I can tell, they've come up with a problem on account of that, and that's what this is about. This video is not meant to compete with or replace the English language version of the 25-minute introduction to the Ganymede hypothesis. Basically, if you look at the axis tilts of the bodies in our system now, you will see that they tell kind of a story, right? You've got two of these tilt numbers which have some kind of a separate little story of their own, and which I would throw away. That's going to be Uranus with a 97-degree axis tilt, and then Pluto, the 120-degree axis tilt. Both of those I'm discounting from this story. Nonetheless, what you see other than for that is that you've got two groups, right? You've got a group which includes the Sun, Mercury, Venus, our own Moon, right? Ceres, Jupiter, and is there anything else in that group? Doesn't seem to be right. These bodies all have axis tilts less than 10 degrees. That's more or less what you would expect from a primordial system, right? I mean, given any kind of a theory as to how a solar system forms up, you would expect the axis tilts. You would expect the spin axes of the bodies to all be roughly perpendicular to the plane of the system, right? You would expect those axis tilts to be mostly close to zero. And like I say, in the case of our own system, you've got a group which shows axis tilts less than 10 degrees. Now you've got another group which includes, let's see, the Earth, 23.4 degrees, Mars, 25.19 degrees, Saturn, 26.73 degrees, Neptune, 28.32 degrees, all roughly 26 degrees, right? This is a second group. What this indicates is that in the very recent prehistoric past, our system was in the form of a double system. You've got a very bright northern system, which is mainly the Sun and Jupiter, right? Jupiter's moons. And then you've got like a separate system which is centered around the former dwarf star, Saturn. Okay, and this group hasn't been captured recently. Okay, the basic idea is that these bodies flew into the plane of the Sun-Jupiter system from the south at roughly a 26-degree angle, and as the individual bodies were captured and began to orbit as they do now, ordinary gyroscopic force would have caused them to keep that 26-degree angle of approach in the form of axis tilts, okay, so that you've got a secondary system that was captured very recently. And there are a couple of misconceptions that you get almost immediately, right? It's like you would have the Saturn, Neptune, Mars, Earth group not as an orbiting system, but in a linear an electromagnetic alignment, which you call a Herbig-Haro string or a partial Herbig-Haro string, which would have flown into the plane of the Sun-Jupiter system. You would expect that it would be like Saturn first, then Neptune, then Earth, and then Mars, or something like that, right? What you actually have is like that the largest rocky body, which is Earth first, right? The alignment that they flew in was like Earth, and then probably Mars, and then Neptune, and then Saturn, right? Saturn would have been the last thing in line. Likewise, for the Sun-Jupiter system facing these bodies coming towards them, what you've got is like the largest rocky body in the system, which is Ganymede, Jupiter's largest moon, slightly smaller than Mars, would have been the first thing sitting there, okay? And then other bodies, right? And then the sun, eventually Jupiter, and then the sun, our present sun. Okay, so I mean that's basically the order of battle, right? Herbig-Haro strings are like Birkeland currents with stars forming at the pinch, but the electromagnetic pinch points where the two currents of a Birkeland current cross each other, you get an electromagnetic pinch. These electromagnetic pinch points do have the power to agglomerate the plasma of space into stars and protostars, right, including both main sequence stars like our Sun and dwarf stars like Jupiter and Saturn both used to be. Okay. At any rate, you've got that happening in the version of the story that I come up with. You've got two approaches like that. You've got an original approach, and I said there were two things. There were two pieces of evidence to look at, right? You've got the question of eye sizes. You've got the old creatures of the Earth who were in this plasma heliosphere of the dwarf star Saturn, right? It was a deep purple sort of a cosmos, and the oldest human traditions on Earth talk about a purple dawn. So that the creatures, you know, you would expect the creatures of a body in such a cosmic alignment to have huge eyes, right? Because you're talking about a very darkish sort of an environment. And the old creatures of the Earth all do, right? All of the dinosaurs, all of the hominids, the Neanderthal, fabulously bug-eyed sort of a creature, I mean, according to real reconstructions like those of Danny van der Meene. Leftover creatures, lemurs, tarsiers, bush babies, owls, all have these same kinds of huge eyes. Humans and dolphins have the smallest relative eye sizes of advanced creatures, right? So that, you know, if you've got a double system in which, which you've got like a bright northern system and then a very dark southern system, right? You'd figure humans and dolphins have to have arisen in the northern side of this thing. Now, in this book that Troy McLaughlin and I put together originally, like in 2012, Troy gives a very good description of Ganymede and the reason for believing that Ganymede would be a believable human home world, right? This planet, Earth, could never have been a believable home world for humans, right? I mean, humans would just be hideously ill-adapted to it, the conditions the Earth was in 40, 50,000 years ago, right? So that at some point, modern humans have to have transferred from Ganymede to Earth, right? You're talking 40, 50, 60,000 years ago. These people were culturally sophisticated. They were not technologically sophisticated. They did not have spaceships. Okay, there's no way that humans came to Earth from Ganymede via any kind of a thing that we would call a spaceship. At this point, the one thing that you're left with is what you call like an electrical water bridge, which is described in various videos that you can find on YouTube, right? And, for that to happen, then you have to have Earth and Ganymede approaching, and those have to be the two things on the outside of the respective systems. These bodies have to approach, in other words, the string of bodies, which representing the Saturnian system, has to approach the string of bodies representing the Sun-Jupiter system in a straight line, more or less, right? Now, Herbig-Haro strings, for the most part, are straightish. Okay, I mean, they don't curve or bend or do anything like that. They're reasonably straight. So that's believable, right? So you have this original approach of the Saturnian system to the Sun-Jupiter system caused by the Sun having slowed as it captured Jupiter originally, right? And you have this electrical water bridge and this transfer of humans and other aquatic mammals from Ganymede to Earth. And then rather than continue this approach, right, and have Earth and Ganymede collide and just destroy everything, the Saturnian system recoiled back, right? You had like electromagnetic repulsion, and the Saturnian system bounced back, and then you had a very long period of time, probably measured in tens of thousands of years, during which the Saturnian system approached the Sun-Jupiter system a second time. Only this time, because of the way in which the Saturnian system had bounced back originally from that first approach, it now lay at an angle, right? You know, you have this 26-degree. You have the same kind of a thing that you get with a train wreck, right? Where you get like cars trying to follow the engine in a train. The train runs into another train or something, like Colonel Crush, and the train collisions they used to charge people to watch, and in Scott Joplin's Crush Collision March. At any rate, because of this, it's like the cars following the engine have no way to continue going forward, so they go outwards, right? You create angles, and you get this 26-degree angle. So the second time that the Earth, Mars, Neptune, Saturn system approached the Sun-Jupiter system, it was not on a straight line, it was on a spiral, right, because of this 26-degree angle. And they didn't just come up on one another. It's like the Saturnian system flew past Ganymede, okay? And at that point, you had probably like Venus already in existence, right? The two systems had been close enough for a long enough period of time that humans had seen the birth of Venus, right? Now here we get into this funny kind of a thing where the Thunderbolters are wanting to claim that Velikovsky was wrong, that Venus had been ejected from Saturn and not from Jupiter. And they want to claim that the body next to Saturn and the Shamash alignment was Venus. Okay, and I've just got a huge problem with that. It's like Venus and Jupiter have almost exactly, to within less than half of a degree, the same axis tilt, right? Now, some of the wiki pages give that axis tilt as 3 degrees for Venus, right? Others give it as 177 degrees, but it doesn't matter. I finally, I should have picked that up originally, but I wasn't looking for that, right? I mean, when I was looking at axis tilts 12, 13 years ago, I wasn't looking for the question of Venus and Jupiter, or Venus and Saturn, right? I was looking for the question of the systems, and what I should have noticed is that, like, if you look at the off angle, like from perpendicular, it's the same, right? It says 177.4 degrees for Venus, and then, like, for Jupiter, 3.13. That's the same. If you look at it as degrees from perpendicular, that's the same angle to within less than half a degree, right? And Velikovsky himself had said that he went over this question of Jupiter versus Saturn as, for a source for Venus. that he went over every possible angle. He said he came to the absolute conclusion that Venus had been ejected from Jupiter, not from Saturn. And the question of the axis tilt angle absolutely locks it, as far as I'm concerned. In no conceivable way that Venus could have been ejected from Saturn. Okay, what you've got is like this other body, which is Neptune, which does have this roughly 26-degree axis tilt, to have been part of the Saturnian system. I mean, at least according to the Shamash glyph, and what that tells me, since Shamash linguistically is Saturn, right? That says that this original Shamash glyph is showing like Saturn, and then the Shamash glyph is going to be antediluvian, right? It's going to be late antediluvian. You're seeing Saturn, and then Neptune, and then Mars, and then the person seeing all of this stuff standing on Earth, right? So the question is, like, how exactly do you get any kind of a Venus-Mars alignment if that's what you want, right? And as I see it, then you've got to look at the second approach of the Saturnian system, where you just have the flood, right? You've got the Saturnian system being captured. You've got you've got the Earth and Mars flying past Ganymede, or anything like that, anything else in that region, right? And then Mars and Earth, you would have to assume, were captured by the Jupiter-Venus alignment. At that point, it's conceivable you could have, like, Jupiter, and then Venus, and then Mars, and then Earth, right? That gives you this Mars inside Venus thing, that the Thunderbolters want. And basically, that would seem to me to answer the mail, if that's exactly what happened, right? That gives you the eye of Ra, Venus being the eye of Ra, but that says Ra is Jupiter, it's not Saturn, right? And when you look at this alignment that they're proposing, for like some kind of a dwarf, or like a dwarf star, and then Venus, and then Mars, right? Well, I mean, the dwarf star's got to be Jupiter. Okay, at any rate, I hope that clears up some of the confusion. Like I said, this is not meant to be like a replacement for the English language introduction to the Ganymede hypothesis, right? But I mean, this should clear some of the stuff up. Next time.